Yo, what's going on YouTube and welcome to Goal Line Hockey. It's Kevin Forte and today we are taking a look at the Seattle Kraken bringing back shutdown defenseman Vince Dunn on a pretty nice contract. Congratulations here to Vince Dunn, and honestly, congratulations to the Kraken fans because I know he's a fan favorite there in Seattle as they lock down Vince Dunn on a nice long-term contract. We're going to discuss that in today's video. So let's take a look at the deal itself. Now, this is a nice little contract because this is in favor of the team and it's also in favor of the player. And some of you may be thinking, how does that work? Usually it's one way or the other. Not necessarily in this case. So the 26-year-old defenseman, he's a really good defenseman in a lot of different ways. But one of the ways that makes Vince Dunn very nice in your lineup and an easy player for a coach to kind of maneuver with, he can play left shot and right shot defense. Now, he shoots left, but he can play the right side as well. So there's a lot of versatility with what Vince Dunn provides to you. So that's the first thing I really like about Dunn. Second thing, he's only 26 still. Yes, he's played a lot of hockey in his NHL career, but that's because he played with the St. Louis Blues and was a good fit right off the bat and has been a really good cornerstone for the Kraken the last 2 years. Now, like I said, his first 4 seasons in the National Hockey League since the 2017-18 season, he's spent that with the St. Louis Blues. We obviously know things in the expansion draft were kind of where St. Louis was going to lose one of those defensemen, and it was Vince Dunn. So Vince Dunn ends up going to Seattle, and you look at his numbers over the last 2 years as a defenseman, mind you. 35 points in 73 games last season. Yes, he only had 7 goals, but still 35 points as a defenseman. That's pretty solid. And then you also look at his numbers this year, which were astronomical. Now again, it is a contract year, so you have to keep that as a factor here. 64 points. He doubled his goal production from the seasons prior. 7 goals in 2021-22. He had 14 goals last season in only 8 more games. He put up 50 assists last season, 64 points in 81 games. That is incredible. And you consider what the potential is for Vince Dunn moving forward. This could end up being a situation where Vince Dunn is kind of betting on himself. Now, you look at the contract, and that's what you guys really want to know about, right? So Ron Francis signs this deal with Vince Dunn. We know how Ron Francis is with defensemen. He likes to lock down his big defensemen. We saw that in Carolina. We're seeing that similar trend here. Now, this is kind of a complicated contract. Despite it only being a 4-year deal, there's a lot to this one. So the base salary is $7.35 million per season. That's the cap hit. So the cap hit is 7.35, which is an easy number and a good number that's going to help the Kraken continue to develop that team around him. But his base salary this season is $9 million. There's no signing bonuses. There's no performance bonuses. It is just base salary. $9 million base salary this year. $8 million base salary next year, $7 million in year 3, and in the final year of that deal, it's $5.4 million as the base salary. Now, that's something to consider here because when he's going to be turning 30 years old at that point, he's going to be able to cash in big. If he continues to put up numbers, if he's putting up 60 to 70 points as a defenseman, let's just say he had an overextension this year. Let's say he's between 50 to 60 points per season over the next 4 years. This guy is going to be making some money on his next deal at 30 years old. Because what I'm looking at here is a defenseman that's been really since he came into the NHL, right? Like, we know how good he was in St. Louis, and the Blues definitely didn't want to lose this guy. But it was one of those situations where he comes into Seattle, and Ron Francis, last year wasn't the best, and that was for the entirety of the team. He was a minus 28. Every other year in his NHL career, Vince Dunn has been a plus each season. 6 seasons now. 5 of those 6 seasons, he was a plus in the plus minus, which is always, some people say it's a team stat, but I do look at that. That is an important stat. And he did really well this past season. Obviously, the point production exploded this past year, and I think that, I think Vince Dunn signing only a 4-year deal here, he could have gone 8 years at maybe 8, right? I don't know if that was on the table, but he could have gone for 8 over 8. But you consider the fact that the salary cap is going to be going up over the next couple years. He's going to be 30 years old. He'll be able to cash in another contract before it's all said and done. If he continues, and I think he's betting on himself a little bit, Ron Francis is going to, take advantage and say, listen, you put up some good numbers last year, but it was only one season. And I think that the betting on himself here, Vince Dunn is going to be motivated the next 4 years. Now, what's another piece of this contract I forgot to mention earlier, the first year, there is no trade protection. But the second year of the deal, it's a no trade clause, and then, which I believe is a full no trade clause in year 2. Then in years 3 and 4, kind of interesting. So it's a 16-team no trade list. So half the league, he sends half the league to the Seattle Kraken and says, these are the 16 teams I am not willing to go to. And if they really want to get a deal done, he would have to okay that deal. So this is kind of interesting because usually, especially with the younger guys, usually the base salary starts low and goes up, right? Like this year, it should be $5.4 million, going to 7, going to 8, and going into 9 in his final year of that deal, because at that point, that's the most value he has. That's not necessarily the case in this deal, and also the fact there's no signing bonuses, it's also a little bit peculiar, but that's Ron Francis. That's kind of the way he runs things. Like I said, overall, the number itself is a really good number for the Kraken. And this is something that I think Vince Dunn has in the back of my mind. I know what I did this past season. I'm going to be able to do that again for at least the next 3 of the next 4 years, realistically, right? Ideally, it's all 4 of the next 4 years. But if even the next 3 of the next 4 years, he can do that, that is going to be something that we have to keep an eye on, because I think Vince Dunn is a really good defenseman. I've really been a big fan of him, even in his days in St. Louis. Yeah, he's the type of defenseman that can be a little bit physical. He's not afraid to get his hands dirty. He's very defensively reliable. He's also a puck-moving defenseman. He is mobile. He's a good skater, and that's the type of player that is going to succeed in today's NHL and moving forward. That's the type of defenseman that everyone's looking for. So, yeah, this isn't the next Nick Lidstrom or the next Erik Karlsson, right? He might not win a Norris anytime soon, but he's that type of defenseman that reminds me a lot of John Carlson when he was a little younger in Washington. Vince Dunn brings a lot of those vibes to me, and I think this is a great addition to the Kraken, and this is a move that, yeah, on paper, it doesn't look like that big of a move. Nobody's really talking about it, but this is a big one for the Kraken. I'm definitely happy for the fans, and I'm happy for Vince Dunn too, right? So guys, that's it for today's video. Let me know what you guys think down below. What do you guys think of this contract? Is it a good deal? Is it a bad deal? Let me know your guys' thoughts down below. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you again next time.